I was only 15 years old when my life completely fell apart. It wasn't a holiday, it wasn't my birthday, and nothing special was happening. Just a regular Tuesday, one of those days no one remembers. But I'll never forget that night for as long as I lived. My mom had been in a bad mood all day. Lately, she didn't need a reason. She snapped at everything: if I took too long in the shower, if I asked for more food, even if I stayed too quiet. I was walking on eggshells in my own home. It felt like my very existence irritated her. And sometimes, it felt like I was just a reminder of all the things she lost in life: her freedom, her dreams, her youth. That night, everything exploded. Came home late from school because I had gone to a friend's house to print out a project. I remember opening the door and seeing her standing there, waiting for me with fire in her eyes. You think this is a hotel? Go sleep in the streets then. At first, I thought she was just angry, yelling like always. But this time it was different. She meant it. In less than 10 minutes, she had thrown my school backpack onto the sidewalk and slammed the door in my face. Just like that, I was out. I stood there, frozen. I didn't scream. I didn't knock. I didn't beg. I just cried. The night was cold. The air felt thicker than usual, and my tears wouldn't stop coming. I looked up at the sky, searching for something, anything. And then I whispered the only thing I could: God, please, don't leave me too. Because in that moment, the truth hit me harder than her words ever could. I had no one. No money. No place to go. Just God, and strangely, even standing on that sidewalk, in the dark, with my whole life turned upside down, I felt something. A small whisper deep inside that said, "You're not alone." That first night, I slept behind an old bakery near my school. I curled up in a corner between a dumpster and a stack of cardboard boxes. The air was sharp and cold, and I had nothing but my hoodie and my school bag. I held it against my chest like it could protect me. I didn't sleep much. Every sound startled me, every shadow made my heart race. But the next morning, something happened. The bakery opened and the smell of fresh bread filled the alley. An older woman, gray hair, kind eyes, noticed me. She didn't scream, she didn't ask what I was doing. She just looked at me, paused, and then said, "Come here, child. You hungry?" I nodded slowly, not trusting my voice. She brought me inside, handed me a warm roll, and poured me some milk. I ate like I hadn't seen food in weeks. Tears rolled down my face while I chewed. She didn't ask questions right away. She just let me sit there in the warmth. I'll never forget her name, Donna Rita. Later, she asked if I had run away. I told her the truth. That my mom had kicked me out. That I had nowhere to go. She sighed. "Life is cruel sometimes," she said. "But God doesn't abandon his children." I didn't say anything. But something inside me stirred. She didn't have space in her house, but she let me stay in the back of the bakery for a few nights. She gave me food, clothes from her niece, and a little mattress to sleep on. Just that, a warm place, a full stomach, someone kind, felt like a miracle. And then came the second miracle. A customer of hers, Mr. Ottavio, was a retired teacher. He overheard her talking about me and said, "Bring her to church this Sunday. Let the community help." I hesitated. I hadn't stepped inside a church in years. My mom only used God's name when she was angry. But something made me go. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was faith, buried deep. The church was small, old. Nothing fancy, but the moment I walked in, I felt something in my chest. Not shame. Not fear. Peace. The pastor spoke about the woman caught in adultery, how the world wanted to stone her, but Jesus didn't. He said, "When the world throws you away, God picks you up." I cried through the entire service. Afterward, people approached me with kindness I didn't know strangers could have. One woman gave me a coat. Another gave me her phone number. And Donna Rita smiled, like she knew this would happen all along that night. As I lay on the mattress behind the bakery, I whispered, "Thank you, God. I'm still scared. But now I have hope." I was still homeless. Still alone, technically. But I knew something had shifted. I wasn't invisible anymore. And I knew in my heart, God hadn't abandoned me. He was just getting started. I thought I had found some kind of balance. Sleeping behind Donna Rita's bakery wasn't ideal, but it was safer than the street. She gave me food. I helped her clean up in the mornings. I was still going to school, even if my uniform was torn and I had no textbooks. The church had become my safe space. I started going every Sunday, then on Wednesdays too. People remembered my name. They hugged me. They prayed for me. They made me feel like I mattered. For a moment, I believed things would slowly get better, but life has a way of testing you right when you start to hope again. One night, I woke up to smoke thick, heavy, burning my throat. I sat up on my little mattress, coughing violently. Flames flickered in the shadows of the alley. The bakery. It was on fire. I screamed, ran around the back, trying to find Donna Rita, but she had already been evacuated. People were shouting, firefighters rushing in. The whole building was engulfed. The warmth that had saved me days earlier was now being swallowed by flames. Donna Rita saw me from across the street and ran toward me crying. "You're alive," she said, hugging me tight. "You're alive." But the bakery was gone, the only place I had. The only shelter I knew. Gone in minutes. That night, we sat on the sidewalk watching the flames die out. She had nowhere to go. Neither did I. I tried to stay strong, but inside I was screaming, "God, why? Why give me hope just to take it away again?" For 2 days, we stayed with a neighbor of hers. But Donna Rita's family lived in another city. They came for her on the 3rd day. She begged them to take me too, but they said no. "She's not your responsibility," one of them said. Before she left, she pressed a small envelope into my hand. It had 120 reis inside. "I know it's not much," she whispered. "But it's all I have. You'll find your way, Corita. Don't let this break you. God's not done with you yet." I cried so hard I couldn't even thank her properly. She was the first person who had ever treated me like I was worth saving. Now I was alone again, back to the streets. Back to cold nights and dangerous strangers. Only this time, I was different. I knew what kindness felt like. I knew what it meant to be loved, even for a moment. And that knowledge was both a blessing and a burden. The next few weeks were hell. Slept in bus terminals, on church steps, even once in a cemetery because it was quiet and no one bothered me. I got sick. I started coughing at night, my ribs aching with each breath. I hadn't eaten properly in days. One night, I felt so weak I collapsed behind a supermarket. I was dizzy. My vision blurred. I thought, maybe this was it. Maybe I'd just fade out quietly, but as I lay there, barely conscious, I felt a hand touch my shoulder. "Are you okay?" a voice asked. A man. Middle-aged. Glasses. Clean clothes. A pastor. I'd later find out. I wanted to speak but I couldn't. I just started crying. He carried me to his car, gave me water, and took me to a clinic run by volunteers. I didn't even know places like that existed. They treated me, fed me, let me rest. That man, Pastor Enrique, became the second miracle in my life. He didn't just help me physically. He introduced me to something even more powerful, a new beginning. Through his church, they found a spot for me in a youth shelter. It wasn't perfect, but it had a bed, meals, rules, even therapy. For the first time since I was kicked out, I had a pillow, a toothbrush, a door that locked. Safety, but more than that. I had space to breathe. To think. To heal. One night, during a group session, the counselor asked us, "What kept you alive?" Some said friends. Others said luck. I said, quietly, God. The room went silent. Then she smiled. Then keep holding on to him. And I did. I prayed every night. Not long prayers. Just simple ones. Thank you for today. Help me tomorrow. Don't let me give up. Because even when I lost everything, even when the fire came, even when I couldn't walk or speak, he sent someone. Every time. That's when I started to realize, God never promised I wouldn't face storms. He promised I wouldn't face them alone. I stayed at the youth shelter for over a year. At first, I kept my head down. I didn't talk much. I was used to surviving, not living. Used to sleeping with one eye open. Used to hunger, to fear, to silence. But the shelter, it was different. They gave me structure, regular meals, chores, curfews. But more than that, they gave me dignity. My own toothbrush. A locker for my stuff. Staff members who didn't yell at me or look at me like a burden, and the church stayed close. Pastor Enrique and his wife started visiting me every weekend. They brought me little things, a new pair of shoes, a journal, a Bible with my name written inside. That Bible became my lifeline. I read the Psalms almost every night. Sometimes I didn't even understand all the words, but they gave me peace. Especially the verse that said, "Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me." Psalm 27 verse 10, that verse? That became my anthem. My anchor. I end time. I started to smile again. I started making friends. I started praying not just to survive, but to grow, and slowly, things began to bloom. I was placed in a public school again. I worked twice as hard as everyone else because I had so much to prove, to my teachers, to myself, to the world that had thrown me away. Didn't have a family cheering me on at school meetings, but I had a fire in my chest. I wanted to succeed. I wanted to show that being kicked out didn't define me, it refined me. One teacher, Ms. Clara, noticed me staying late at school, using the library to study. "Where do you go when you leave here?" she asked one afternoon. I told her I lived in a shelter. She paused, then said something I'll never forget. "Don't ever think your past limits your future." Some of the strongest people I've ever met came from the hardest places. Her words stayed with me. Every test I passed, every book I finished, I felt like I was taking back a piece of myself, and then, something I never expected happened. One day, the shelter director pulled me aside. "There's a family that wants to foster a teen from the program," she said. "They asked for someone who's been through something, someone who has strength." My name was on her list. I froze. I had spent so long being rejected that I didn't even know how to process being chosen. The family, Anna and Roberto, weren't rich. They didn't live in a mansion. But they had something I hadn't seen in years: peace, kindness, stability. When I walked into their small, warm home, the first thing Anna did was hug me and no hesitation. "No questions, welcome home," she said, and just like that, something inside me broke. Or maybe, something inside me finally healed. They didn't try to replace my mother. They didn't act like I owed them anything. They just showed up. Every day. With food. With rides to school. With love. They taught me how to cook, how to budget, how to take care of myself. They taught me that families don't have to share blood to share love. For the first time in my life, I celebrated my birthday. With cake. With candles. With people who actually sang for me. I went back to church, this time with them. And I stood up during testimony night and told the congregation everything, about the night I was thrown out. About the fire. About the alley. About the tears, and about the God who met me in the lowest places and never let go. When I finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room, and then I said this: I lost everything. But God gave me back more. I lost my home, but He gave me shelter. I lost my family, but He gave me love. I lost my way, and He found me. That day, I realized something even deeper than survival. God doesn't just rescue, He restores. He takes ashes and turns them into beauty. He takes pain and turns it into purpose. And He takes abandoned 15-year-old girls and turns them into living testimonies of His love. I was 18 when the call came. It had been 3 years since that night. The night I was kicked out of my own home with nothing but a torn backpack and a heart in ruins. 3 years since I had last heard my mother's voice. Now, suddenly, it returned. Not in screams, not in curses, but through a quiet message from a social worker. Your mother's in the hospital. She's not doing well. She asked for you. I didn't know how to react. I stood frozen, heart pounding, as memories flooded in. The night she shoved me out into the cold. The words she spat. The tears I swallowed for months. The way she turned her back and never looked for me. Now she wanted to see me. Everything inside me screamed, she doesn't deserve it. But then, another voice whispered, and did you deserve grace? That night, I prayed like never before. I wept. I wrestled with myself and with God. How do you face the person who broke you? How do you walk back toward the fire that once burned you alive? But God reminded me that the cross was built for moments like this. He had forgiven me when I had nothing to offer. Could I do the same? The next morning, I walked down the sterile halls of that hospital with trembling hands. Room 208. That's where she was. I didn't know if I would walk out healed or shattered all over again, but when I opened the door, I saw something I'll never forget. She was on her knees, not because she fell. Not because she was weak. But because as soon as she saw me, she collapsed to the floor and wept. Forgive me, she cried, over and over. Please, forgive me. I destroyed your life. Her voice was cracked. Her eyes hollow. But her tears were real, and in that moment, the woman who once spit in my face for being poor, for being a burden, was now kneeling before me, broken, and I broke too, but not in anger. Not in hate. I knelt beside her, took her shaking hands in mine, and said, I forgive you, Mom. I truly do. We cried together for what felt like a lifetime. She told me everything about the depression, the loneliness, the regret. She said she spent years hoping I'd walk through her door. Said she prayed for the first time in her life. Said she begged God to give her one last chance to say those words, and He did. God didn't just heal me, He gave me the strength to help someone who once broke me. She didn't have long to live. Just a few more months. But I stayed with her. I held her hand. I made peace, not because she was the mother I needed, but because God had made me the daughter I was meant to become. She died knowing I loved her. That I didn't carry hate in my heart. That I had been restored, not by revenge, but by grace. I spoke at her funeral. I said, my mother made terrible mistakes. But so have I. And if God could look at me in my worst moment and still say, you are mine, then I will choose love. Every time. Today, I tell this story not for pity, but for hope. I want the world to know that being abandoned is not the end. That being thrown away doesn't mean you have no worth. And that God doesn't just rescue, He restores. I was kicked out of my house at 15. I slept on the streets. I begged for food. I almost died, but God never left me. He sent people. He gave me family where there was none. He gave me purpose where there was pain. He gave me forgiveness where there once was only bitterness. If you're reading this today and feel forgotten, lost, rejected, let my story be proof. You may be broken, but you are not beyond repair. You may feel unloved, but God has not abandoned you. You are not the worst thing that ever happened to you. You are the living proof of a God who rewrites stories.